Did I wish for it or did I wish for it? Less than a year ago, I played SMT V Vanilla, and despite all the criticisms it received and even agreed with, I really did enjoy it. The lore of the game was so interesting that despite its bare-bones presentation, I'd still sing its praises. But clearly, I wasn't the only one clamoring about this, because Atlas listened, or maybe it did its usual cash grab of releasing a vanilla version then the extended cut, by releasing SMT V Vengeance, an all-new path which addresses complaints of base SMT V. So before I begin, I want to make clear that I'm going to focus on the Canon of Vengeance route, not the Canon of Creation. If you want to see that, check out my original video on SMT V Vanilla. With that cleared up, let's get into it. Firstly, if you get it on Switch, you're rewarded with goodies based on the latest date you've played Vanilla. Otherwise, the opening is more or less the same, with one added cutscene of a sleeping girl. If you take her hand, congratulations, you're on the Vengeance route. If not, you're playing Vanilla. Most things play out the same up until the Lamu arc, where we start getting new bosses, cutscenes play out drastically different. The story beats, though, are more or less the same. You'll remember a cutscene happening here, but it won't be what you expect, so it's always keeping you on your toes. Although I will say, rather than it feeling like a brand new game, it feels like the game it should have always been. Well, almost. And I'll dive into that at the end of this video. To keep it brief, it addressed things while also making some mistakes. What was primarily addressed were the characters, which sometimes they knocked it out of the park, other times they fumbled. Now listen, I know SMT isn't known for their deep and interesting characters. Now I haven't played SMT 1 and 2, but 3's characters were just vessels for an ideology. It wasn't until SMT 4 where characters started to have a personality, chimed in, had conversations with one another, but base SMT 5 took a page out of Nocturne's book and was like, let's go back to borderline blank slate characters. And the story really did suffer for it, because some characters got way more screen time than others. There was a lot of missing context to characters' motivations, some were even forgotten about if you didn't do side content. Vengeance addresses all of this, even if it didn't always stick the landing. We have new villains, the Qadištu, which, I hate to say, look really pretty, but don't have much substance. Like, they're fine, I like them, but they're nothing to write home about. We have new allies, Yoko, the girl's hand that you take. She's a student at a whole different school who's all mysterious and seems to have a strong conviction. The best part about her is she serves as a foil to Tao, the perfect girl. Everyone loves her, she's popular, kind, yada yada. There are many situations while traveling the broken world where you have to slay X or Y demon. One demon standing for chaos, the other law. And depending on which demon you slay, you get good favor with one girl over the other. Note, this will determine your ending, as in Vengeance there are only 2 routes, whereas the base game there were 4. Back to more characters, the one that felt deeply underdeveloped was Atsuta. In base, his presence was severely lacking. In fact, I'm pretty sure his main demon just stops appearing mid-game with no explanation. But in Vengeance, he does stuff. He talks, he deeply cares about his sister, having a whole mini arc about her. He has scenes not only with you, but good old Ichiro Dazai, the comic relief, the golden boy of SMT 5, because before he got all the attention, and it was very clear the developers wanted everyone to like him. Now, it felt more like a fair shot between liking Dazai or Atsuta. And to really solidify a connection with these characters, they all joined your party. They would comment on things. The girls specifically mentioned before the quest pitting their ideals against one another. You could fight with them, and if you paid attention, they were very opposite. Tao is all about healing and buffs, where Yoko is very offensive magic and debuffing. It was very telling of who they are as characters.
You are done.
And speaking of battling, again, gonna focus more on the new stuff, but a quick rundown of the basics. SMT 5 Vengeance utilizes something called the press turn system, one of the greatest battle systems of all time. It's simple, rewarding, and sometimes complete bullshit. For every enemy weakness you hit, you gain 1 extra turn shown by the blinking icon. If you miss, or your attack is reflected or drained, you'll lose turns. And the best part is the enemy follows these same rules, so attack enemy weaknesses while covering your own. There's a Makatsui gauge which fills up a little each turn, allowing for a game-changing powerful skill. Not much about battle has changed, save for a nice refined auto battle feature, which allows only regular attacks or using skills that best suit the situation, which really did help speed things along. You do get a fancy new look, which really only amounts to getting a new Makatsui skill. Mentioned before, guest characters like Yoko, Tao, Dazai, and Atsuta are playable. There are talismans and periaps, which allow demons that correlate to use special Makatsui skills, as well as group skills, which are activated when certain demons work together. Consecutive encounters have returned, so sometimes you'll be fighting more than just one round of demons. Speaking of demons, over 40 were added, so keep a lookout. And this goes without saying, but gathering demons is the same. Negotiate and get them to join your cause. I really like the Guess That Demon minigame they added during negotiations. It made me pay more attention to demon names. Or fuse them in the world of shadows to gain stronger demons. Also in Vengeance, all of the original DLC demons are available, so Cleopatra, Artemis, etc. It was my first time using them, and let me just say there's a reason why you gotta pay for them. And that about sums up the changes of battle. Now, exploration was more fun this time around for me, possibly because I knew where everything was, so I felt like I was zipping through areas. Which brings me to new areas, which often have some newer demons, but also old areas didn't always have the demons I expected them to have. Mainly one of the late game areas where the difficulty spike was real. Thankfully, they adjusted that for a smoother playthrough. It's easier to see your surroundings now with a sky view function, giving you an idea of what's around. These areas are huge, and a better way to navigate them, they added Magatsui rails, which speed you along to different parts of the map rather than having to fast travel to various ley lines. And speaking of, before you had to save at ley lines. Now you could save anywhere, which is great because I hear SMT Vengeance is tough for newcomers, so you'd want to save often. For me, I felt the challenge at the end rather than the beginning, and admittedly, because I played base game, I knew what to expect in the early game scenarios, which gave me a foothold. But they also did tweak and balance some things out. I find if you're an SMT vet, you'll be fine. If you're a newbie, well, strap in, baby. There are new things to discover like protofiend husks, which give you Aogami essences. These work the same way as any other essence, changing the protagonist's affinity or skill set. You can also use essences on demons now, but only to change their skills, not affinities. Be on guard for Magatsui demons. They come in a dark red and are more challenging than their standard form, but obviously come with high rewards. Different types of quests, some which are timed, so if you move the story along too far, the quest closes. Others are timed a different way through the phases of the moon. Collect X things before the full or new moon. Others have you controlling demons to help them out with their little side adventures. They were cute, something to break up the monotony of slaying, negotiating, and fusing demons. Probably one of the most useful and appreciated features are demon haunts. Take a load off and talk to your demons in Aogami to be rewarded with items or hell, they may even power up. After a few battles, leveling up, completing a quest, demons will want to talk to you and will typically level up a random stat of theirs. This is great because 1, more powerful demons is always better, but 2, it can keep lower level demons relevant. But from a story perspective, it's actually pretty fun talking to these mythological beings and their dialogue saying something in reference to their lore and connecting it to the world they're in now. It can be silly, serious, or somewhere in between. You also build a deeper connection with Aogami, which I just adored. Okay, yeah, sure, maybe I have the biggest crush on Aogami next to Daddy Yakumo, of course, but hearing him talk about how he cares about you and learning about the human experience while also commenting on the story thus far, I loved it. Ate it up. Now, without a doubt, SMT added a lot of quality of life, new characters and new mechanics, but they did take away a few things, mainly an entire area and its dungeon. Personally, I was happy they got rid of the trenchy area, as it was very confusing and frustrating to navigate. And more importantly, they threw away the Demon King's castle, which was by far the most annoying part of SMT V. Hell, they actually patched the original castle because so many complained about it. So I played the less aggravating version and still hated it. And while this is overall a net positive, I think sometimes the game relies on the player already playing the original. So any bosses that were in the original area you wouldn't ordinarily meet. Instead, they're locked behind something called a visual trainer, a way to battle boss demons again at different difficulties. Don't sleep on this, as some of the demons locked here are important for late game fusions. But back to missing context, there's a part of the game where the angels are like, oh, we're doing X thing over here. If you've only played Vengeance, it's gonna feel like you're missing out on something, because what the angels are doing is a thing you did in the base game. Meanwhile, in Vengeance, you're doing something completely different. So there's a bit of tell and not show feeling. Again, I personally enjoyed this change because they literally wrote out areas of base SMT V that I didn't enjoy. Now, a big hurrah from the community was SMT V was no longer stuck on the Switch. It's on all platforms from Switch to Steam and, okay, listen. I'm not a graphics junkie whatsoever. I got it on Switch because of the promise of a few demons from base SMT V carrying over into Vengeance. The thing is, they're late game demons from your old save file, so they cost an arm and a leg, so you couldn't even buy them anyways, and by the time you could buy them, you already had them. So frankly, it was pointless for me to buy it on the Switch, meaning I was stuck with, well, these graphics. And then my friend showed me how it looked on PC, and damn, did I feel suckered. The PC release is absolutely gorgeous. On the Switch, the outlines look a little spotty and textures pop in constantly. It's not great. Listen, I did it once so I could do it again on the Switch, but do yourself a favor. If you're thinking about getting it on the Switch because of the extra goodies you'll get, don't. Not worth it. Unless you're that deep into that portability life, which, not gonna lie, I feel you. And since I got the Qadištu up here, look at these designs. The new main demons are gorgeous. They may not have had the same command and presence as the angels did. Abdiel is by far the strongest character in the game, but I feel like you'd only feel that way if you played both. They were fine. I think their designs did a great job conveying their trope. Nama, super sexy, Asheth the deranged, Agrit, poised and proper, and of course, Lilith's redesign, and she got her serpent looking like a baddie. I love how their designs are uniform, but still distinct. It's all black, white, and gold, but Lilith is clearly the leader with her pop of color. The black wings, they have a haunting beauty that is so welcomed in SMT. In terms of design, Nama is my favorite, but in battle, Asheth. Ugh, love her. What can I say? I love me an unhinged woman. And wrapping it up with the music, oh my goodness, we did not deserve a lot of these new boss themes. And obviously, new location means new location themes, and I found a lot of the area themes matching where you're at. I appreciate that different parts of the larger areas have different music. I remember beforehand thinking a lot of SMT V's music was fine, but for whatever reason, I found myself appreciating it a lot more this time around. Obviously, old tracks are still present, but the new ones absolutely kicked it up a level. My new favorite, which has no business being this fucking heat, is one of the new boss themes. Enjoy! Congrats, you made it this far, but now I must speak on the game's fumbles, and unfortunately, I must spoil both Vengeance and Creation routes. This is your warning to click this number right here to finish the video without being spoiled. SMT V still rushes or makes strange transitional leaps for some of the cast. Let's talk about the most obvious, the greatest, the most memorable offense of SMT V vanilla, Dazai's transformation. Literally stands on the edge of a building, goes off on a rant about the ultimate truth when you're approaching a save point. Just an ordinary save point. No indication that something's gonna trigger. This boy takes off his hat and suddenly he's in a hardcore Christian rock band. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside. There was no build-up whatsoever to this, so it was out of the blue. How did this happen in Vengeance, you may ask? An evil not evil angel, Mastema, makes an example out of him, turning him into salt, sends his friends off and returns him to his normal state, asking about power. Now, anyone who's played base knows what's coming, and I was excited to see how they're going to handle this part above all else. Fast forward, the Qadištu succeed in their plan. They summon Tiamat. We die, we don't die. We come back to see Dazai rambling about how that angel gave him power. He doesn't need to rely on anyone. Blah blah blah, takes off his hat and boom, he discovered hair gel. And because Atsuta did not have hair gel, he orders Abdiel to kill him. Pretty sure that's how it went. Sure, it wasn't as jarring as approaching a save point, but again, we went from point A to 8.5 to C. I don't even know what 8.5 is, but it's not B. When he was saltified by Mastema, he says to close his eyes and receive a blessing, with Abdiel not even there. Mastema wasn't even needed. All he had to do was, like in vanilla, agree to awaken as Abdiel's knowledge. So that fell off. And speaking of Abdiel, this brings me to my second point. In Vengeance, as you approach the throne, you see her as fallen Abdiel, as Dazai runs his mouth and shows off his new teleporty power. And no, you don't get to see how her transformation happened. They did her a huge disservice in Vengeance. In vanilla, having the angel who upheld the Order of Bethel, such a staunch believer in her cause, monologue about her weakness that she had to go against her own beliefs of not allowing a Nahobino, a threat to God, to live by becoming one herself. It's a massive disgrace to her, and you see her become a fallen angel.
Darkness. As a fallen angel!
That entire scene, not in Vengeance. There was literally no excuse for that. She could have transformed then and there, and you still could have fought her when you did in Vengeance. Kind of in the same vein as Abdiel being done dirty is you fight her in front of the other gods, give her a good thrashing, which turned the other gods away from Bethel, and give them a reason to be like, we don't need angels, we'll just become Nahobinos ourselves, which is why you fight them late game. But that entire scene is not in Vengeance, so they just kind of pull up. And finally, my favorites, Yakumo and Nua, the neutral representatives. When Tiamat is freed, she goes all 2008, I'm a fire in my laser, and Nua guards Yakumo. It's one of those, what happened? Did she live or die? She's dead. No, you don't find out through a heart-aching scene. Instead, while you're looking for keys to the throne, you meet Yakumo, and he delivers the news. This was lazy as shit, because earlier they gave us this beautiful scene of Yakumo stabbing Nua to make a point about how meaningless she was to him. But as it turns out, he always did care, and he was a giant hypocrite. Also, while I'm on my high horse, man, if only they could have teleported out of the way like they've done countless times before. I swear, did they run out of budget? Time? Because how are you going to kill one of your mains and not show and rather tell the audience that Nua is proper dead? Yakumo mourning the death of his lover, a chance to show a different side of him with Nua? Nope, just, hey kid, my girl died. At the very least, my boy lives, and technically is single, so lucky me. Oh god, I need help. There ain't no way where I can recommend base SMT V and not recommend SMT V Vengeance. Thoroughly a better experience. Fleshed out story, lore, and most importantly, characters, a lot of quality of life improvements, and if you're a graphics nut, SMT V is no longer locked on the Switch. Editing Pel here, and while overall better, it does make the same mistakes as the original and feels like you're missing context. Because you are. Still a lot of fun. For me, it was about the lore and the gameplay that was king here. It is still an SMT game, so it can get a little tough, especially toward endgame, but if you've played vanilla, I think you'll be fine. Remember, if you haven't played base SMT V, be sure to check out my review here, and if you have, check out my review on the best SMT, SMT IV. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to support me on Patreon. Love your faces, and I'll see you in the next video. Mwah!